No worries. I know you've got there's an action coming up from Deepak and I think Black Triangle as well. Can you tell us? I mean, I've got you sent me a picture of a book which I hadn't heard of, which I think everyone should get. Which is the department: How a Violent Government Bureaucracy Killed Hundreds and Hid the Evidence by John Pring.
That's correct, yes.
Can you tell us a bit about the book and the action that you're putting up
Yeah,
on early September?
yeah. Right, okay. John published his book by Pluto Press Tuesday just gone. He spent years researching the Department of Work and Pensions going back 30 years, how his subsequent cuts going back from late 70s through to now, how government pretty much ignored evidence from professors, from researchers that the cuts would harm and kill disabled people. And when disabled people started dying as a result of the cuts in the early 1990s, the department and civil servants and ministers hid the evidence. So John has meticulously researched the Department of Work and Pensions, and before that was the Department of Health and Social Security, and has written this book. It's literally how, the department, how a violent government bureaucracy killed hundreds and hid the evidence. I mean, back in 2010, when just before the coalition government, we had a disabled man called Stephen Carey who had severe mental distress, who was found fit for work after a work capability assessment, took his own life. And the Department of Work and Pensions, he applied for a tribunal before he passed away. And the Department of Work and Pensions knew he died and did not even counsel his tribunal and everything. The tribunal went ahead and his father went along. They called out his name and his father held up Stephen's ashes to show the tribunal what had happened. And the tribunal overturned the decision, but Stephen Carey's death and the coroner's report was completely ignored by Ian Duncan Smith, who was then the Secretary for State for the Department of Work and Pensions. He continued with the rollout of universal credit, knowing it would, the work capability assessment, knowing that it would harm hundreds of disabled people and lead to people taking their own lives and causing significant distress, which has been proven in John's book. So Black Triangle, backed by Deepak and the UK Coalition of Disabled People, they're the group who went to Geneva to the UN Committee for Rights of Disabled People. They've come together. They did, some of you may have seen, they organised a fundraiser to buy copies of John's book. First, it was to go to Labour MPs, obviously they're now in government, but they raised enough money for copies of John's book to go to all MPs in the House of Commons, all elected mayors across the UK, members of the Welsh Assembly and members of the Scottish Parliament. So on the 2nd of September, when Parliament reconvene after the summer recess, we're all going to Parliament where these books have been put into black envelopes. We're all going to be wearing black to remember all disabled people who have died. And we are going into Parliament to make sure these books are literally hand delivered to each MP on all sides of the House, with a letter to ask them to reconsider the cuts that Rachel Reeves is planning for disabled people. And we've seen recently the shock of and the callous decision of means testing the winter fuel allowance. So we're asking allies and supporters to come along on the day on Monday next week at 12 noon, a week's time, to support us taking the books into Parliament. But if you cannot make it into Parliament for the day, to support us on social media. We're asking people on social media to wear black as well in remembrance of disabled people who've died, to use the hashtags The Department, which is the title of John's book, and also No More Benefit Deaths. And we need as much support as possible to highlight John's critical expose, and also to get as much pressure to be put on Labour as possible. Once we've delivered the books, we've organised a meeting in Parliament. John McDonnell's organising a room at the moment, so we're asking MPs to come along and listen to what disabled people and allies have got to say. And we're saying to Labour that we're watching, we're listening, but also we want them to start reaching out to us, because we want to literally co-design changes to the welfare system, but more cuts are coming. And we know Rachel Reeves's callousness, and it's going to lead to extreme poverty and, sad to say, more deaths if we don't do something and push back. So 2nd of September, please support us in London, or whatever support we can give us online. Let's get the Department and No More Benefits deaths trending on social media on the day.
Yeah, well, I'll put this out on YouTube as well, so people can see it then, and more people might be able to.
Thank you very much, Crispin. Really appreciate
I'm
that.
looking forward to. I'll get a copy of the book as well. It sounds interesting. Thank you.
For me, because I've lost friends from the outcome of the work capability assessment, have taken their own lives. I've been put through this. It is a climate of panic and fear that the DWP have caused for decades towards disabled people. But I urge everyone to read this book. It's hard-hitting, it's shocking, it's devastating, but it needs to be read by everyone. And then for you to all email your MP and say, what are you going to do to put a stop to this?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paula, and I hope to hear what happens as well when you come back again after the. Yeah, great.
Thank you very much, Crispin. Solidarity, everyone.